The room is quiet. Maybe it's 2 a.m. Maybe it's the middle of a Tuesday afternoon and the world outside is moving and you are sitting completely still, feeling like you exist behind glass, watching everyone else live while something in you waits. Waits for what? You're not entirely sure. A sign, a word, a reason. And then somehow, through an algorithm or a friend or something you cannot explain, you ended up here. Right here. And I need you to hear me before we go any further. That was not an accident. Archangel Michael does not clear a path for people who stumbled. He clears a path for people who were called. And you were called to this moment before you were born into the body you're sitting in right now. Stop. Breathe. Feel that. Something in your chest already knows what I'm about to say is true. This video is unlike anything I have ever recorded, and I have sat in this chair and spoken to hundreds of thousands of people. But today feels different. Today there is a weight in the room that I cannot fully describe except to say that it feels like standing at the edge of something enormous. Like the moment before a wave breaks, when the ocean pulls back and the air goes silent and every creature on the shore goes still. That is where we are. And Michael, the commander of heaven's armies, the one whose name literally means, "Who is like God," has not come gently today. He has come shouting. He has come with authority and urgency and something that sounds almost like desperation. Except angels do not despair. What they feel is holy urgency. And holy urgency feels like love that has run out of patience for delay. If you are new here, welcome. Subscribe right now, because what gets released on this channel is not content, it is encounter. And comment below, open heaven. Let those two words be your declaration that you are ready to receive what has already been prepared for you. Comment it right now. Do it before you go another second. Because this message is a door, and your engagement is the key turning in the lock. Now let's go deeper than we've ever gone before. There is something nobody tells you about being chosen. They don't tell you that it feels, for a long season, exactly like being abandoned. They don't put that in the inspiring quotes. They don't make that into a poster. But it is the truest thing about the chosen experience, the early years, sometimes the middle years, sometimes what feels like all the years, are marked not by obvious glory, but by a profound and aching aloneness. You look around and you cannot find your people. You try to explain what you feel inside, and the words come out wrong, or the person across from you smiles politely, but their eyes go distant, and you realize they cannot follow you where your mind naturally goes. And so you stop explaining. You go quiet. You develop this whole interior world that almost nobody gets to see. And in that interior world, you ask God questions that shake the walls. Why did you make me like this? What is this for? Is any of this real? I want to tell you what Michael wants you to know about those questions. He says they are not signs of weak faith. He says they are the sound of a soul that is large enough to feel the weight of its own assignment. Small vessels don't strain. Small vessels carry small things without difficulty. But when God has put something enormous inside of you, a calling that spans generations, a gift that could alter the spiritual atmosphere of every room you walk into, that weight presses against your ribs from the inside. It keeps you awake. It makes ordinary life feel like a costume you are wearing that doesn't quite fit. And everyone around you thinks you are strange because you keep tugging at the collar of your own existence. Uncomfortable in spaces that should feel comfortable. Restless in seasons that should feel settled. This is not dysfunction, this is design. The ancient Hebrew word for chosen, bachir, carries within it the idea of being tested by fire before being selected. Not chosen and then tested within the choosing. Meaning the very discomfort you have lived inside is part of the qualification process. The loneliness was a classroom. The silence was a teacher. The years nobody saw you were the years God was doing the most precise and delicate work in the architecture of your spirit. And now Michael stands at the threshold of what is next, And he is not whispering. He is ordering. Because there is no more time for you to be uncertain about who you are. In the book of Daniel, we meet a man who understood this experience so deeply, it is almost painful to read. Daniel chapter 10 describes a moment where Daniel has been fasting and praying for 21 days. 21 days of seeking heaven with everything he had. 21 days of silence from God. No vision, no voice, no confirmation. Just a man in anguish, pressing his face toward heaven and receiving nothing back, or so it seemed. And then the angel arrives. And the first thing the angel says is staggering. He says, "From the first day that you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard." The first day, day one, the moment Daniel's lips moved, heaven responded. But Daniel could not hear or see the response for 21 days because there was a battle happening in the unseen realm that Daniel knew nothing about. I need you to sit with that, because you have prayed prayers that felt like they dissolved into air. You have cried out and heard nothing. You have waited in silence so long that you began to wonder if you had been praying to a wall. And the answer from Michael today is the same answer Daniel received. From the first day. From the very first time your heart bent toward God. From the very first honest tear you cried in a dark room. From the very first moment you whispered, "I need you," heaven moved. The response was immediate. You just couldn't see the battle being fought on your behalf in the realm you don't have eyes for yet. This is why Michael is shouting today. Because you are about to come out of your 21 days. And he needs you conscious and ready and not asleep in discouragement when the breakthrough crosses the threshold. What does it actually mean for an archangel to shout? I want to build this image carefully because it matters. In the ancient traditions, Michael is not described the way popular culture renders him, some beautiful, passive figure with light streaming from his wings. The Michael of Scripture is fierce. He is a warrior of extraordinary rank. In Jude 1:9, Michael is described in direct confrontation with the devil himself, disputing over the body of Moses. In Revelation, Michael leads an army. He wages war. He commands legions. This is not a soft presence. This is the general of heaven's military, and today he has turned his full attention toward you. Now ask yourself, why would someone of that rank and power feel urgency about your life? Generals do not shout at insignificant things. They conserve their authority. They speak with precision and purpose. When Michael raises his voice, it is because what is at stake is enormous. It is because the enemy has been working hard to keep you small, to keep you distracted, to keep you 1 foot inside the door of your calling and 1 foot still planted in the life of who you used to be. And Michael has watched this long enough. He has watched you almost step forward and then retreat. He has watched you talk yourself out of the very things God placed in your heart. He has watched you apologize for your gifts, diminish your visions, and explain away the supernatural experiences that were meant to anchor your faith. No more. That is what the shouting means. Not anger at you, never anger at you. Authority on your behalf. He is not shouting because you failed. He is shouting because you are standing 1 inch from glory, and the only thing between you and it is the decision to finally, fully believe that you are who God says you are. The title of this message says Michael has never begged, and that is profoundly true and profoundly important. Let's stay here for a moment. There is a difference between a command that comes from indifference and a command that comes from love so fierce it will not negotiate with your fear. When a lifeguard shouts at someone drowning, they are not begging. They are not making a suggestion. They are throwing everything they have into cutting through the panic and the noise and the water to reach the person who cannot yet see the shore. The authority in the voice is an act of rescue, not dominance. Michael has never begged because begging implies uncertainty about the outcome. Begging implies that the one being begged has information the beggar lacks. But Michael is not uncertain. He knows what God has prepared. He has seen the blueprint of your life from a vantage point you do not have access to yet. He has watched grace move in your direction like a tide that cannot be stopped. And so he does not beg. He commands. He orders. Because he is certain, more certain than you are allowed to be right now, that if you open what he is pointing to, your life will change in ways that your current mind cannot fully imagine. The question is, what is he ordering you to open? We will get there. But first you have to understand what has been keeping you closed. Psychologists who study human behavior have identified something they call the imposter phenomenon. You may have heard it called imposter syndrome. But the clinical description is more precise and more relevant to what we are discussing. It is the persistent internal experience of intellectual fraudulence, the deep-seated belief that despite visible evidence of competence, you have somehow deceived everyone around you into believing you are more capable or more gifted than you actually are. And the expectation, constant and low grade, that you will eventually be exposed. Now here is what I find extraordinary. This phenomenon was first identified in studies of high-achieving women in academia, meaning it was discovered in the people who were most objectively successful, the ones with the credentials, the results, the room full of evidence of their gifts. And they still felt like frauds. If you have ever stood in a moment of genuine spiritual breakthrough or been given a word of prophecy over your life that you knew was accurate, and your first internal response was, "I don't deserve this," or "They must be confused," or "This can't really be for me," you are experiencing the spiritual dimension of this same phenomenon. And it is not humility. True humility says, "I receive this from God, knowing it is by grace." False humility says, "This can't be for me," and hands back the gift God spent eternity preparing. Michael is ordering you to stop handing the gift back. The story of Gideon in Judges chapter 6 is one I want to walk through slowly, because it is perhaps the most precise biblical parallel to what many of you are living right now. The angel of the Lord appears to Gideon and opens with a declaration so startling that Gideon's first instinct is to argue. The angel says, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." And Gideon's response is essentially, "Are you talking to me?" He says, if God is with us, where are all the miracles our fathers told us about? He says his clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and he is the least in his father's house. He does not say these things as false modesty. He says them because he genuinely believes them. He is hiding. He is threshing wheat in a winepress, doing the work of survival in a place designed to conceal him from his enemies. And the angel of God does not argue with his self-assessment. The angel simply holds the original declaration. Mighty warrior. This is the divine posture toward you. God does not negotiate with your biography. He does not revise his opinion of you based on your past. He does not see the version of you that is hiding in the winepress and say, "Oh, you're right, my mistake." He holds the original declaration, and he sends his heavenly messenger to shout it louder. You are mighty, you are chosen, you are called, not because of what you have done, because of what he has placed inside of you and what he intends to do through you. Gideon's transformation did not happen through perfect confidence. It happened through incremental obedience. God said to Gideon, "Take your father's bull and tear down the altar of Baal in your village." This was enormously dangerous. The whole community worshipped at that altar. But Gideon obeyed, partially. He did it at night because he was too afraid to do it in daylight. He did the right thing in the shadows, and God still moved. God still used the incomplete, frightened, partial obedience of a man hiding in a winepress to begin the liberation of an entire nation. What does this mean for you? It means the threshold for God to begin working in your life is not perfection. It is not boldness. It is not even full understanding. It is movement. One step. One word of obedience. One moment of trusting the voice that says you are more than you have decided to believe about yourself. Michael is not asking you to leap across a canyon. He is asking you to take one step toward the edge and trust that the ground will be there. The mystics of the early church, Origen, Pseudo-Dionysius, the desert fathers who went into the wilderness to listen, they all described a particular spiritual experience that modern Christianity has largely forgotten. They called it luminous darkness. It was the paradox of feeling most near to God in the season of most profound spiritual desolation. Not because God was absent, but because God was so present, so fully present, that human faculties simply could not register the magnitude of what was surrounding them. Like walking outside into brilliant sunlight after hours in a dark room. The brightness is not absence. But to eyes adjusted to darkness, it registers as blindness. Many of you have interpreted your spiritual dry season as evidence that God has withdrawn. You have looked at the silence and concluded abandonment. You have measured the distance between where you are and where you thought you would be by now, and the gap has felt like failure. But the mystics would say this: you are in luminous darkness. You are not abandoned. You are being bathed in a presence so concentrated, so intentional, so specific to who you are and what you carry, that your ordinary senses cannot process it. This is not the silence of a God who forgot you. This is the silence of a surgeon operating with complete precision. You don't want the surgeon talking. You want the surgeon focused. And Michael is here to tell you the surgery is complete. The season of preparation has reached its appointed boundary. What was being formed in the darkness is ready to enter the light. And he is shouting not because you are falling behind, but because you are right on time, and time is now. Let's talk about the door, because the title of this video is a command. Open this. And we have been building toward what this is. It is not a physical door. It is not a mystical portal that requires a special prayer or a formula or anything external. The door Michael is commanding you to open is the door of your own believing. The door between who you have decided you are and who God has always known you to be. Every human life has this threshold. Most people never find it. Some people stand at it their entire lives, pressing their hand against the wood, feeling the warmth on the other side, never quite pushing through. And a small number of people, in a specific moment, sometimes in a car, sometimes at 2 a.m., sometimes watching a video they cannot explain why they found. They push the door open, and everything changes. In the Gospel of John, chapter 11, Jesus stands outside the tomb of Lazarus. Lazarus has been dead for 4 days. The stone is sealed. Martha says, "Lord, by this time he stinketh." One of my favorite lines in all of Scripture for its raw, honest human despair. It stinks in there. It's been too long. The situation has passed the point of rescue. And Jesus says something that I believe is among the most overlooked sentences in the entire New Testament. He says, "Did I not say to you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" Notice the order. Believe first, see the glory second. Not watch the miracle and then believe. Believe before there is anything to see. Open the door before you have evidence that the door leads anywhere. And then watch heaven move. This is the doorway Michael is pointing to, not to circumstances, to your own interior posture of believing. Because the moment you genuinely open that door, not performing belief, not hoping for belief, but actually crossing the threshold into God said it and I receive it, the stone rolls away. The 4 days dead thing in your life begins to breathe again. Now I want to speak to the part of you that has been hurt, because I know that some of you are not in this dry season or this lonely place by random chance. You were wounded by people who were supposed to represent God. A church that made you feel like a project. A leader who spoke words over you that took up residence in your chest like splinters. Family members who told you your faith was naive, your gifts were delusion, your calling was pride. And so you learned to hold your spiritual life carefully, privately, like something breakable, because you had seen what happened when you offered it to the wrong hands. Michael is not angry at your caution. He honors the history that made you careful. But he is asking you to make a distinction between the people who misrepresented God and God. Between the institution that failed you and the Father who has never once looked at you with anything other than absolute love. The wound is real. The wound deserves to heal. But the wound cannot be the last word about your relationship with heaven. Because what was done to you in the name of God was not from God. And the God who is speaking to you through this video is the God who knelt in the dirt and drew in the dust while everyone else threw stones. He is the God who crossed social barriers to speak to the woman who had been through 5 husbands and was living with someone she hadn't married. Not to condemn her, but to offer her water that would mean she never thirsted again. He sees your wounds. He is not pretending they don't exist. He is offering you something on the other side of them. And Michael is his messenger today, commanding you to let the wound be real without letting it be a wall. We are approaching the end of this message, and I want to give you something specific. Not vague inspiration, not a general feeling. Something you can carry out of this room and into the next hour of your life. Here are 3 practical, spiritual, deeply biblical things that Michael is commanding you to do, starting now. The first is to speak your calling out loud. Not to anyone else, to yourself, in private, once a day. Not because God needs you to perform it, but because the spoken word carries creative power. In Genesis, God spoke and things came into existence. You are made in that image. When you speak your calling, even imperfectly, even haltingly, even when it feels ridiculous, you are participating in the act of creation. You are giving form to what God has already spoken over you in heaven. Start small, even just, I am chosen, I am called, my life is not a mistake. Say it until your body begins to believe what your spirit already knows. The second is to find one person, just one, who is safe, and tell them something true about your inner life that you have never told anyone. Isolation is the enemy's primary strategy against chosen people. He knows that if he can keep you alone with your doubts, the doubts will multiply. But isolation loses its power the moment truth is spoken into another person's ears. You do not need a community of thousands. You need one witness. One person who hears you and does not run. Find them. The third is to return to the last thing God clearly told you to do that you have not yet done. Not the large, scary mountaintop command. The last clear, specific, practical thing. A conversation you were supposed to have, a project you were supposed to begin, an apology you were supposed to offer, a gift you were supposed to use. Go back there, obey there, because heaven's next instruction always waits behind the last one you haven't completed. These 3 things are not suggestions, they are the orders Michael is carrying. You came to this video in a particular state, maybe exhausted, maybe quietly hopeful. Maybe both at once, which is perhaps the most human of all conditions, bone-tired and still believing. And if I have done my work correctly, you are leaving this video in a different state. Not because I am extraordinary, but because you were ready. Because the seed that was planted in you before you were formed in the womb has been waiting for exactly this kind of water. And heaven has a way of making sure seeds receive water at precisely the appointed time. Archangel Michael never begs. He commands. He orders. He shouts. And every one of those forms of communication, when they come from heaven's general in the name of the God who made you, is an act of love so vast it cannot be contained in any language built by human tongues. He shouts because you are worth shouting for. He commands because the authority behind the command is also the authority that holds your life in perfect safety. He orders because you have been given a mission that matters to eternity, and eternity does not have the luxury of waiting for you to feel ready. You will never feel ready. Ready is not the prerequisite. Available is. Willing is. 1 inch of genuine, trembling, imperfect surrender is enough for God to do everything He has planned. He doesn't need your confidence. He needs your consent. Comment, open heaven below right now. Not as a magic phrase, as a declaration, as the sound of a door moving on its hinges for the first time in too long. Subscribe so that the next word finds you. Share this with the one person you know who is sitting behind glass, watching the world move, waiting for a sign that they were not forgotten. You were not forgotten. You were found. Before you found this video, before you typed the search, before this morning began, you were already found. And Michael stands at the threshold of what is next in your life, not asking, not hoping, but declaring with the full authority of heaven, open this. The door is yours. The glory is prepared. The only thing left is you.